When I came here, that was the first time I heard of arranged marriage.
Oh, yeah.
I never in my life ever had that, concept. I never heard of it. Approach in a way, like I had few, like, marriage requests. And I had everything figured out, I'll study in my country, I'll be in university, I signed up for everything.
Yeah.
But when I went to Rishikesh and I was doing my course there, something flipped and I knew that India has a lot to teach me, and I just knew I have to study here. People from here, they're facing more that Western modern lifestyle, and we already have that, so we are looking to the Indian spirituality, meditation, yoga kind of a lifestyle, Sometimes here I feel more heart connection to people than in my own country.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Lalith Dhanush show. Today I am so happy to have this wonderful guest who I have been trying to get on my podcast for the last 8 months. This person is a mini celebrity, of course. She is a yoga student. She loves Ayurveda and Indian stuff. And most importantly, she is also an aspiring model. We're going to talk about spirituality, life, and everything outside this country. Welcome to what I think is going to be one of the best episodes on my show. Welcome to my guest, Alena, guys. Woohoo! What's up, Alena? What's happening, celebrity? Thank you for gracing us with your presence.
I'm happy to be here. After what? Yeah, it's been like 6, 7 something months now.
Yeah, it's about 6, 7 months.
Yeah. Finally.
Woo. So, Alena, first of all, in India, the elephant in the room is the elephant in the room, right? And for me, you being a foreigner and you being in this country is number one. I watched too many Indian movies growing up, so my perception has always been different until I went to Ireland. So I want to know what brings you to India and why have you stayed here for 3 or more years, which is the biggest question I have.
So actually, like, I came here when I traveled the world. Like, I went to South America, Central America, and then I shifted to India because I did a yoga training in Rishikesh. And after that, I don't know, something switched in me. Like, I had everything figured out, I'll study in my country, I'll be in university, I signed up for everything.
Yeah.
But when I went to Rishikesh and I was doing my course there, something flipped and I knew that India has a lot to teach me, and I just knew I have to study here. So I did my bachelor's here. Like, I went to, actually it was crazy, I just went, it was like that. I'm like that. So I didn't even have any connection to the place. They just sent me an email, you can come, like that.
Yeah.
So I just went.
Like, before you jump into this wonderful story of yours, I have a bunch of reality check questions that I have. As a foreigner, didn't you feel like, oh my god, India is so dirty, stinky, like weird, all sorts of people, all sorts of smells. Why the hell should I stay here in this place? Like, I'll get to Rishikesh and all those things in a bit, which is, I feel, a little more interesting, but I want to know this.
I never felt that, to be honest. Like, why should I stay here in that way?
Wow.
I mean, I saw those things and they did something with me, all those impressions sometimes was like a lot.
Tell me about one of those impressions.
It's not, I don't feel like, I'm better than that, I should not stay here. It's just, I see things and they touch me, It's like when I see how people live sometimes, or when I see certain conditions, they touch me. What makes me angry sometimes is when, for example, my friends, they don't have any awareness about garbage or something,
Correct.
Those things, they make me angry, but I never feel like I am not supposed to stay here because it's not good enough or not clean enough or anything.
So
Never like
did you
that.
think what made you move was the fact that you saw yourself in that person? Like, if you saw a poor man without enough clothes, or without enough food, or without enough family love, or anybody, in fact, maybe a child that did not get the privilege that you did, or maybe a dog that would be treated differently in Austria to how it is treated here. Did you somehow see yourself in all these images?
I think what, like you said, if that is what kept me here, no, what like really kept me in India was more of the yoga knowledge and the ancient knowledge they had.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if I saw myself in that, but it made me realize certain things about how home is and how things are in my home and how things can be, you know. It just made me appreciate some things more.
You built gratitude.
Yeah, a lot.
Wow. Wow. I think once you develop gratitude, you are somehow capable with this one switch. Every single time you feel terrible, all you have to do is just go back home for a moment, and you know you have your safety net. You know you have a family that will do anything for you. But now, why are you stopping from actually going all the hell out? Like, I think gratitude gives you that invincible feel, right? Like, now you know what you can really do, like true power.
But you know, I felt a lot of gratitude, like my family for sure, like without them and without their support, sometimes I wouldn't have not gotten through it. Because you know, sometimes it can be really tough. But the gratitude here also is what I learned. Like, I found my faith in yoga, you know? And I'm not saying about the fitness yoga kind of a thing, I'm saying about the real knowledge of yoga.
Yeah.
So I think that gave me a lot of gratitude, because I think when you have faith, it changes everything for you.
100%. And I think that's also the miracle of India, right? Like, India is such a land of faith, and I think people get very sensitive about this topic called religion, but very seldom understand that religion is a tool of faith, right? Like, common sense, Hinduism has 16,000 gods. Don't tell me that they're true. But the values, the stories, the learnings that they carry as a vessel, that is what is true.
You know what, one trace which I've absorbed a lot, which I think comes from the attitude and the values of their religion, is how Indians, they always try to help, you know?
Yeah.
That's like one thing always, and I think that comes a lot from faith, you know?
True.
They give and they give. Maybe it's because of the theory of karma or whatever, but that community kind of a thing and that giving, you know?
Yeah.
That is something which I think comes from those values, you know?
Tell me a little more about giving, like how you feel Indians are more giving and how you've incorporated giving in your life. What have you tried to do?
One thing. Like, one thing which I appreciate so much about India, which is like, I don't know, it just impresses me sometimes, is that energy they have from the heart, you know? That love which comes from the heart, even if it's just one look. That can be enough, you know, you can feel that heart energy. And one time it happened to me that I traveled home from India and I arrived in our capital, and it was just hitting me like this, you know, the moment I got out of my plane. It's like, sometimes in Austria, like especially in the city, people can be very, hard to say, not harsh, but you know, there is not so much of that kindness going on between people. I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, I miss that kind of a friend kind of a thing, you know? Even you don't know the people well. Here in India, it has happened a lot to me that I got stuck, you know? I don't speak their language. Like, I got stuck many times, but even when I'm alone on the street, people help me, you know?
Yeah. And I also feel there are two parts to it. Indians being nice, and do you also think it's the foreigner privilege card that does that? Or are you just too nice to say everything is one?
No, like, I agreed. There are few like incidences where I say, okay, maybe they just give me a special treatment because I'm from outside or I'm the guest kind of a thing. But I'm not a tourist, no? Like, I've lived here for a long time, so I've made my friends, I've lived with my friends, you know? So I know that this is not a thing which is just happening for 2 days until she's gone because she's a tourist. But it is actually a thing when I see my friends living together, you know?
Yeah.
There is that giving thing. It's just a part of the culture here. And even when we stayed together for 3 years, still like with my best friends, it hasn't changed those things, you know? So it is not a short-term privilege, I would say.
I think that's a really nice way to put it. maybe once you start differentiating between instant privilege and long term understanding and relationship, I also do agree, because when I was in Ireland, making money was great. Like I had potential to make money. Who would I spend it with? Because in India, I don't just go to dinner alone. I have to take a bunch of friends and then dine with them. I have to share a meal to truly cement my relationship, right? Like we break bread. Like I truly get it. Like there, catching up for food would just be like, if you're there, we'll catch up for food, or I just go do it on myself. On the contrary, I feel Indians also miss doing things alone. They become so connected to the society around that now they're completely society driven, because they're so giving. Giving now becomes like a handed privilege.
That is true, yeah.
And on the other side, they fail to spend time by themselves.
I completely agree. You know, there was one thing happening when I was in the university. It's like, for sure that we are more like individual people. You know, like we like the individuality, we like our space. In our culture, generally, we are a little bit more, which is a good thing also. You know, it has both sides. But what I've experienced here in India is like they don't even go to the washroom alone. You know, so if it becomes a dependency, I don't like it. If it's a community thing where you can enjoy it, but still you can be alone,
very
it's
true.
Beautiful.
Very true.
You know, when I was in the like in campus, I stayed there, no? And for me, I love to be with people, but I need my peace and my silence at some time. So I had my own room, and my other, like my friends, the girls, they were staying in like a big dorm. And for me, I was like, oh hell, like for me, it's not, I can't do it. It's impossible for me to manage. It will like kill me. So for me, it was such a good thing that I had a room. But for them, it was like, you will not feel lonely. If you want, we can give you an extra bed in our dorm. And I was like, people, thank you. I mean, it was so cute, no? But for me, it's impossible. So even though I love that community, I still feel how I've grown up was more in a quiet and silent space. You know?
I still like the way you called it cute, dude. Because like, dude, it takes genuine appreciation to do that, right? Because you're seeing more of their intent than what they're actually. They might not be aware, but the intent comes from a very pure heart. Yeah, I get it. Dude, speak to me about Rishikesh, and what was like the vibration, or what was like, did you expect that it's going to be like that? What was maybe a very intense experience that you had? Like, take me back there.
Rishikesh was beautiful. Like, to be honest, Rishikesh was a little bit more of like, you know, maybe a little more European kind of a experience in India. It is not that pure thing which I experienced here in like Jigani.
Okay.
But it was very beautiful because people came from all over the world. Like, we had a group of 10 people, and it was intense, like, for sure, because to be honest, before I didn't have much experience with yoga. Like, I worked in Costa Rica in a yoga center, so that's why I decided to go to Rishikesh.
Okay.
But it was intense also, that whole, you know, schedule and everything.
Yeah.
But it was so beautiful because the group was so good where we were. And so, sometimes we had some trips going on, so we went around. And Rishikesh with the Ganga River, it's just a special vibe, you know?
Yeah. Like, did you get to see all the pujas and the entire omas and all of these things? Did you get to witness it?
Like, we did a few pujas in that kind of a community, but we also went to the Ganga River. There's one special place, I forgot the name. You know, there's one unique place where they do the fire thing.
Yes.
That one, we went,
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I've seen it in a bunch of Instagram reels as well. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Oh man, what do you think about this whole concept of? Okay, before we go into all of those things, tell me about yoga. Like, I'll tell you why people don't like doing yoga, because it's uncomfortable, because it's not, they can't bend their bum, you know, they really can't do shit. So, like, what would you suggest the easiest way for a lazy goof to start yoga? Like, what would be the easiest?
See, that is the whole thing which people have as a definition of yoga. You know, people think of yoga as in those posters which they see where people bend their body. I have a crazy flexibility. I know the physical part is for sure like a big part for yoga. I have increased my flexibility, like, because we started at 5 a.m. every day we had class, no? But that is not the thing which is the major part about yoga. It's more the mindset, you know? It's more about the deeper sense behind it. So I think once people understand more of it, they become, you know, their own boss in that way.
So you're saying if you do yoga by understanding your body and how yoga is actually going to make you much better, will it work? Or is there a certain way to do it? Like, or is it just in the mind?
See, there are so many ways because yoga is everything. You know, it's not about going to the class, that's it. Yoga is like your whole life can be yoga, you know, in that way. So there are obviously so many different ways how to approach it. And even for me, like I work in that field now, like I connected to the medical field because I've done more studies. So what I do is when I treat a person, I can never approach it in the same way.
Wow.
Because people are different, no? But yoga is for everyone because everything is yoga, you know?
Yeah, and they also say yoga is actually more than exercise. In fact, it comes from karma yoga. The word yoga comes from karma yoga.
Like karma yoga is one part of yoga, you know. There are so many different types of yoga in that way.
Okay,
But
so the king of everything is Raja Yoga, I think, right? Raja Yoga is
Raja Yoga is one of the 4 streams. There are like 4 streams of yoga,
okay.
which is like Raja Yoga, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga.
Yeah.
So it's just different ways of how to approach. Again, in that philosophy they show people are different. Some people do it through selfless actions. Some people do it through devotional songs. You know, everything
Got
is
it.
a way of how to connect to yourself.
So let's quickly list out some of these things that you just mentioned, right? Now but at the end of the day, yoga is a state of being. Like it isn't like a specific exercise or, you know, Baba Ramdev, they show him in the morning, he's doing Kapalbhati and then he's standing like an Oscar award, you know, that cannot be it.
Yeah.
Now, tell me about all of these processes. Number one, you have exercise as one form. Like you said, you have next complete devotion and seva that you do. Third is you chant.
See, no, actually you can explain it very easily that way. What people know now is yoga on the physical level.
Okay.
According to yoga, there are 5 different bodies, okay? Like 5 different layers. So when you, like I'm a yoga therapist, right? So as in that, I approach, like I work on all bodies. I don't just work on the physical body.
Yeah.
So if you work on all bodies, you can reach that unity stage, you know?
Can you tell me how you could reach each one of this, like any small
Like
step by
let's
step?
say there is for the physical body, obviously there are asanas, there are like cleansing techniques, there are like so many different ways. For the next stage, there are like pranayamas, which you already know, even the cleansing techniques are there.
Yeah.
For the third stage, which is like the mental stage, there are again different practices which you give your patients, you know. For the fourth stage, which is like the intellectual stage, knowledge is a huge part, lectures are a huge part. So the final stage is the bliss stage, you know. So what we do in the yoga therapy is basically we treat on all those bodies to remove all the blockages.
Wow. And for me having that experience, like for example, I went to a meditation retreat program recently in the Art of Living, and as you said it, I was able to relate as to how these guys actually made me get through all of this. Like for example, we started off the morning with some really good yoga. Then we were also made to do you know, breathing practices, and post that we were asked to do seva, where we were helping clean the ashram. We were talking to other people you know, about the courses that we were doing and how they could benefit. The fourth one would be knowledge lecture sessions, and then we would have yoga nidra sessions, and then we would have like really blissed out sessions to a point where you're like, I'm here. I'm really here. Like you feel every cell in your blood. You can even listen to it going through. Like you are so one. Like I'm telling you guys, like if you think alcohol high is great, go to one of these meditation centers. You will see the real high. Like I don't know why people don't talk about it this way.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you want to get high, go to a meditation center. You would have never been that high in your life. Like, alcohol is nothing. Alcohol will wear out like after 5 hours.
See, the thing about alcohol is also people want to get into that state.
Yeah.
For us, what we say is like, happiness is silence. If there is silence, you're in that complete bliss stage. Everything is union, So even with alcohol, with any drugs, people just try to reach that state. So basically, in this whole life, even with money, you get that, that temporary kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to reach the same thing, but yoga is just, I guess, the healthy way of how to approach, how to get union within yourself,
Very true. One of the things about money that Alan Watts says is, imagine if you're stranded in an island and you had 5 cases of $5 billion bills. You couldn't eat them to survive. You needed fruit, a love of a dog, family, and protection. That's what you're looking for, not those dollar bills or like money.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, we live on the world which is a materialistic world, no? So we have to kind of, I think it is a balance between the material you have to know how to manage. You have to know how to manage money, obviously, because you want to live in this world, no?
True.
On the other hand, you have to connect it with your spiritual way, because money is energy in some way, you work and you get money, so it's just kind of an energy.
True. And it also replicates the energy that you have. Like you could take money and do a terrible thing, or you could take money and do a great thing, right? And I think that's where Indians are somehow, once they make certain amount of wealth or on their process, they tend to share a lot of these things. I also feel charity becomes a big part, right? And sharing this wealth, sharing your bread, I feel is very necessary. And today, Indians should also go beyond the point of sharing knowledge. Like, one of the things that I feel is everybody should somehow feel responsible for somebody else. Like, try becoming a teacher, not just as an Indian, but even as just another citizen of, any country, or, being a global entity. You got to take that responsibility of supporting somebody around you in your community. And that's where the Sanskrit word Sangha comes in, right? Like, you got to be a part of your Sangha. So it's Sangha, Seva, and what's for practice? So these were the 3 things that I was taught. But yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. Now, getting back, Alena, so also tell me a little bit about how has India been? What are the experiences that you don't like?
That is a big question. Well, to be honest, I can just say, compared to my country, I'm from Austria, no? So Austria is a small country. We have few people, and it's very different. Like, compared to India, it's a different world, okay? And I've traveled a lot my entire life, but staying in India was, I think, the most intense country I've been staying at. And the diversity you have here is crazily big,
Yeah.
And I won't play pretend like it's been such a great journey only. I'm here, that's the reason why I stayed, no? I must have had something here which holds me. So I've had a lot of happiness. I have had a lot of great moments, a lot of, wow moments. I've been impressed. I've had mind-blowing moments. But I also went through hell. I went through.
Give me a couple of incidents.
Lows.
Give me the lowest lows. Take me there. We'll see how that is.
That was for sure in my university.
Okay.
For me, I have my culture and my mentality, So I went to a place which is very conservative, but a completely different world. So for me, I had that constant feeling there that what I'm doing is wrong, Because what I do is normal for me, but in the other culture, it's something so different,
Correct.
So that constant tension of, am I doing something wrong, or am I hurting their culture, was a constant stress in myself, And then there were a few incidences as well with the university, authorities and everything, which, I don't know, it just hit me really deeply, that those few things, sometimes even my health went away, I was admitted to hospital. I was having a lot of health breakdowns, which also showed me that I have a strong willpower, I push through things a lot, but that showed me that my body is giving me signs of, hey, it's too much for you. It's you're breaking. Yeah. So I've had a lot of those points as well, and points where I was just crying and didn't stop, and then I just wanted to go home, you know, because home is where I'm coming from, where I'm used to everything. So I guess it's all been quite a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that contrast is what gives you complete perspective, right? Like you got to have, if you want to value sunlight, you got to have darkness, and if you got to value darkness, you got to have sunlight.
Yeah.
And I think often you don't reflect during light; you only reflect when you're in the dark, right? Reflection comes only in the dark. So I feel life's reflections for you have been those dark phases. Also, tell me, how were you going through it, dude? Like, didn't you ever throw in the towel and say, like, I want to go back home, I want mommy, I want daddy, I want to be with them, I just want to eat some nice home food, just be there. Like,
Yeah.
take me through a moment like that.
Um, there was like one incident, for example, physically, where I was admitted in hospital for a week and I couldn't take, like, there was a complete toxic, like I had a food poisoning, so my body was just gone, and it was like really dangerous at that point, you know. And then I was like, I don't belong here and I never will, you know. That feeling, it hit me so deeply, and I was in such a weak state. My parents almost flew in to take me back, you know. And there was the physical part where I've struggled a lot with my health because of the hygiene and the differences, everything.
Correct, true.
And mentally, I think I've had a few incidences where I felt that in that place, in that perception, everything about me is wrong, you know? In how I grew up, my conditioning, and how, like, my culture works. In those moments, I was like, I even forgot, like, how I feel when I'm in my country, and until I went back and I realized, hey, this is where I come from, and this is how I belong into a crowd, you know. And sometimes I had those times here where I felt everything about me is wrong, but I don't fit in anywhere until I went home, you know.
Wow. I think as as torturous and crazy and troublesome it would have been, what doesn't kill you really truly makes you stronger,
Yeah.
man. Like that.
Yeah.
Who said that? Katy Perry. Yeah, but I'm sure it definitely has some depth to it. I'm so happy, dude. I'm so proud that you've done something so incredible, and people people just don't know. I feel it takes. I think it takes them. They have to watch this podcast 2 times maybe to go through layers. Not that it's just so deep, right? And to get to that depth is very hard. And today, one of the things that I feel people lack in depth is when it comes to relationships, right? We were just talking before this that in your country, they always believe in having depth and then committing to something, but in India, you commit to something and then have depth. Tell me about that, man. Tell me about, so indirectly, in a very diplomatic way, I was trying to ask you about how many times have you been hit on by Indian guys. I'm sure you've gotten a lot of spotlighting, and I'm sure most of them wouldn't have been very enjoyable as well. But tell me a little bit about this. You getting attention. What do you think about Indian men?
To be honest, like, the concept here is different. When I came here, that was the first time I heard of arranged marriage.
Oh yeah.
I never in my life ever had that, concept. I never heard of it. Like, in movies maybe, but that my actual classmates having arranged marriage was something so absurd for me because I didn't know any of it, you know?
Yeah.
So for us, I think we just have a different way of how we face those things. It's like, it's more that we are completely independent as women in my country. So we earn, we do, like, in my country, many people, they don't get married at all. So
Okay.
they're just independent. When I say individually, like, so there is not that need of that anymore, I guess. So I've seen a lot in that way that people, they don't depend on each other, so there's no need to get committed in that way. I feel like here it's still a lot about, in some ways I feel like it's a contract,
Yeah.
and there doesn't have to be anything bad about it. It can be good. There are like different functions in that contract, like different parts which function together.
Yeah.
But it's less about how we go to that and how here it's a major part in society, the marriage and everything, So I guess you just have a complete different importance of that. And maybe you get married and you have arranged marriage. It's not mainly the purpose of love. It's more of the purpose of duty and the functioning, you know, and then you can fall in love. You know?
I think I've tasted both sides of the spectrum. I come not from a very conservative family. I've definitely had the freedom to be in a relationship, or at least talk about it to my parents, and my parents genuinely understanding my problems and the things that I went through. So, but when you come from a straight up society just like that, what do you think is better? Like, do you think does the Indian thing make sense to you at all, or on a personal preference, do you think you would love to go the way you've always been functioning from your house? And what is your take on this? I mean, I'm not talking about arranged marriage, but I'm just saying, which do you think works?
See,
what's your take?
I am not a person I judge, okay, mine is better, this is not good. I'm a person, I reflect on mine, then I reflect on that. I just, you know, observe. And for me, in the past 3 years, every day I've been confronted with those things, no? So I started slowly to question our values of relationship, you know? So I think it is a combination of both, which is ideal. What I definitely don't think is good is if there's any force.
Correct.
Like if you have to, you know, or if you, for example, if you're really in love but then you have to get married, I don't support that. But if it's both like an agreement, you know, where both confirm, okay, this is what we do and we have our different roles in that.
Makes sense.
Good, no?
Yeah, true.
Like it's just a different way of what do you want, and then shouldn't be any force behind it.
So would you ever get married?
Yeah.
Do you believe in the concept?
I believe in the concept, but if I got married, I think I would do like, you know, a ritual somewhere in nature or something. Because for me, it's more of that, you know, the bond and the promise you give each other. It's less about this whole church and everything.
Correct.
But my parents are divorced, so I'm cautious with those things, you know, because of my past and my experience. But I definitely think marriage is something very beautiful.
Yep.
For me, it has to, you know, first I have to be so sure, then I get married. It's not I get married and then I fall in love, you know?
So, I mean, this is again a very big thing. So, have you ever looked at an Indian guy and said, I'm not dating you because you're Indian? Or have you looked at it saying, oh, I think marrying somebody from there? Because I also know for a lot of growing up that you've done, you've imbibed Indian spirituality, right? Like you've imbibed a lot of Indian depth, which is your learning. But on a very physical perspective, you were born and brought up in a different country. So, would you be okay marrying somebody of familiarity or somebody of depth, maybe in India? What's your thought about that?
To be honest, I'm lucky that I don't have to. From my parents, I have a complete freedom, no? So for me, even though it can be very difficult to combine those cultures, if I feel that from the heart it's the right thing to do, I can, you know? I do think that those things sometimes are connected, familiarity and depth. Because I think sometimes like the cultures are so different, you know? So the depth, you know, there has to be a lot of understanding of each other. You know?
True.
But I personally have had like my friends and all, you know, they're like so deeply connected with me that I think you can always find ways, you know? So as I have the freedom, I can marry or I can be with anyone. I just have to feel it from the heart, you know?
Correct.
To combine the cultures as well.
True. And I think when you combine the culture on a very far perspective looks great, but it also is quite hard. Like the other person has to be open in making this culture also integrate into their lives. I think a big heart matters a lot. Like you got to have a huge heart to accommodate it, and especially when in India you have very stronger heads, right? Like people are not willing to change on certain levels until it's done with a very heartful way. So I feel for an Indian to adapt to a culture there is going to be as hard as for that person to adapt to a very in your face kind of an Indian culture as well. So I think it's two ways.
But I have to admit, like for example, sometimes here I feel more heart connection to people than in my own country. So for me, it is not majorly that they have to be from my place kind of
Got
a thing,
it.
you know. Sometimes I feel more connected to people from a completely different background.
Makes sense.
But
makes
of
sense.
course, you have to admit that, like, you know, with time, different challenges would come, which will not be there in your culture,
100%.
those topics, you know. But if the heart connection is there, I think that's worth it, no?
Makes
but
sense.
I think sometimes you don't even notice, like by living together or, you know, by sharing time with people from a completely different culture, sometimes things happen and then after you only realize, okay, maybe that is because our cultures are so different.
True.
That your perspective is like that and mine is just completely different. But there's no right and wrong, you know.
Correct. And then I think you fall into that phase of maximum growth. Like you're growing both like both your cultures are going to now interweave into becoming a new subset by itself, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I feel now you'll have to boil down to the most human core values, and none of these outer differences of food, the way you are, or the way you speak will matter anymore, because now it's intertwining a lot. Very interesting, Alena. I'm so glad, you know, this conversation is happening to a point where we know you in person. We know what's gone with you and your professional career. Now, speak to me a little bit about your professional career. Like now you've done a degree here. Do you want to continue with this? What's your plan in the future? Where are we going next? Like it's a typical interview question. What would you do in 5 years?
Okay, so like I've done, like health field is my field, you know, the medical field is where I'm so passionate about. But I came here to India because I wanted to learn the other, like alternative kind of a medicine, which is like I burn for that, you know. So I finished my bachelor's in the yoga therapy and I'm doing my doctoral diploma now in the acupuncture therapy and like alternative healing methods. And for me personally, I just want to help people, you know, and I just, because in my country that doesn't exist, this kind of a like the yoga therapy, you know, it doesn't exist. So I came here knowing that my study is not valid in my country, but I have so much passion and so much joy about this knowledge. So I just want to bring it to my country, you know. So I'm thinking now I will stay in India and work here. I want to become so confident and, you know, have so much experience. And in that way also, I have to find ways with the legal situation in Austria, because Austria is not India. Like Austria is so strict, you know, even like with the needling and everything. I have to always find the way how to manage that. So for now, I'm thinking to stay in India, but at some point I want to bring it to Austria, you know. I want to help people there. I want to have different approaches of medicine. Because here you can go to the pharmacy and you can say, okay, I want Ayurvedic medicine. Okay, I want naturopathy. It doesn't work like that there. We have our pharmacies and that allopathy is our medicine kind of a thing, you know. If you have to find another person who has alternative medicines, you have to have luck kind of a way, you know.
Yeah. Makes sense. And I think for me to be super influenced and to get back to my spiritual side of things, the biggest reason for it were Western philosophers like, you know, Alan Watts, Ram Dass, and all of these guys. Because until then, I never believed in God or the Hinduism way of actually living life. But as I saw a lot of these Americans, Britishers, and other people from the Western countries talk highly about Hinduism and the Ayurvedic principles and spirituality as it was in India, they considered it to be at one of the highest, you know, levels of consciousness. And that's when I actually started genuinely appreciating my own culture, because a lot of Indians today, like my own friends or people around me, I see don't appreciate what they already have. They think everything outside in the West is super cool. I want to know your perspective, because you are somebody who was born in Europe and you decided to come down here, which is an Eastern country, and actually learn traditional ways of healing, medicine, and Ayurveda. Like what was your take on it when you came across these philosophies and these ways of living?
So I think India has some kind of spirituality, or like, you know, the amount of people who are like practicing spirituality is very high compared. Like I grew up, like my mom, she's a religion teacher and all. So I've always grown up in like religious traditions, but not like conservative, more of like faith, you know? So what I see here in India is there is so much, but I feel nowadays people are drifting away from that, you know? So I feel like they see what we have in the West and we see what you have in the East, kind of a thing.
Okay.
So I think people from here, they're facing more that Western modern lifestyle, and we already have that. So we are looking to the Indian spirituality, meditation, yoga kind of a lifestyle, you know?
Yeah. So also tell me about, when you speak about the Western part of it, like how many people in Europe or the countries that you've traveled are actually looking this way towards the East? Because I know most of the Eastern people are looking to most of the East are looking towards the West, but I don't know, is most of the West looking towards the East? I don't think so.
No. Like, let's say, I think there is a certain group, like a certain like tendency of people who face the East, you know? And those people are more the ones who are looking for spiritual practices in that way. Like the people who are like more, let's say, I don't know, like into the business or anything else, they won't look much at the East. But those people who actually want to have that self-development, I think those are the ones looking to the East.
When did you ever come across India as, like, when did you decide that India is the place you have to come to? Is it because of that Rishikesh trip that happened? And why did you want to study Ayurveda out of everything? Like, why not something else?
So actually my mom comes to India every second year because she's doing a treatment in Kerala. So she's very fond of India, which has always, you know, made me connect in some way with India, I guess. But Rishikesh was more of an input of my sister-in-law. She told me, like, why don't you go? That would suit you so well. And I think once I was here, there was no questioning. It was just, I have to. I feel it from inside, you know, my intuition is telling me it is my thing, you know.
So you came based on the suggestions of people, and because your family had some sort of familiarity here. Is that why you chose to come here?
No.
Okay.
Like I came here for the first time, like for, I think like 2 months. It was a suggestion, but that I actually shifted here, most people didn't want me to. So that was completely my thing, you know.
Okay.
Like maybe my father or my bigger family or anyone, they say, please don't go, like don't shift there. There are a lot of prejudices towards India as well, right?
Yeah.
So they were not happy. They didn't send me here, and that was completely my decision to come here and to stay here.
That's nice. So, after you came here, Alena, what were some of the, what do you say, things? I know more than what were some of the things. I must say, how did you get reacted by Indian boys? Did you get hit on a lot?
Yeah.
So, were you tired of saying no? Like, dude, no, I'm not into the way you think it is.
See, I had very different hit-on kind of experiences. Like in my university, there is more the conservative aspect of the people, no? And then the city or the modeling kind of scene, there are again different people.
Yeah.
But the first time, like the first few years, I was only in my university. So that was more a kind of, you know, how to say, more of an approach in a way. Like I had few like marriage requests.
You're like, I'm too early for this. This can't even happen.
It was interesting in some way how they hit on me. I never expected to ever be hit on that in that way. But yeah, I mean, I was also like, it doesn't happen that a foreigner is there a lot, you know. So I guess it is also something which they're not so familiar with.
Correct.
So it is something special in the first moment. Yeah, I guess.
Nice. I mean, at least for me to listen to it sounds fun, but I'm sure it's not that fun being in your position or in your shoes.
You know, sometimes it has gotten to the point where it actually annoyed me a little bit because I'm like, I know I look different. I know I'm like, everything's maybe different about me, but I wanted to fit in, you know?
Yeah.
And if there were always like hittings on, there are no chances for a proper friendship in that
Correct.
way, you know? So at some point also I felt, can you just, you know, take me as a friend in the group where everyone's our friends? Like, I don't want to
Yeah.
be different. I just want to be a part of that, you know?
Nice. And were you able to communicate it with these people easily, or did you take time to tell them, listen, I actually want to be amongst you guys, not like away feeling different?
You mean referring to the guys now, no?
I mean, in terms of friends.
I mean, I think the girls, after a few weeks, the ones who were just like hyping about me because I'm new, at some point they just left anyways, no? But the real ones, they were staying, and then for a few years, you know, ties, now you grow together because you make experiences, not because you're different. Referring to the guys, in some ways, it was a brief, you know, they just hit on you, and then once they know, okay, no chance, anyways, over, you know. But if it's actual friends, yeah, you have to find good ways how to communicate it.
True. And now you've moved from like being this one person who's super comfortable with yourself to being with a completely new culture. Speak to me about why is it important to come out of your comfort zone, especially at a young age, and you've done it better than anybody. Like I feel you've crossed so many comfort zones. Uh, what is the importance of doing it, like, because you know in India not many people are allowed to come out of their comfort zone, experience freedom. What is that given to you, and tell me the importance about it.
See, for me, what I'm for sure very lucky is in the family I have. Like, even sometimes I have to convince them in some way that what I'm doing I really want to do, but I have their basic support always, you know, that back kind of a thing. They always have my back. But I think for me, especially when I shifted the first time I was 15, no, I left my home for a long time.
Wow.
So I think that was essential for me to become an adult, you know, to be more independent, to know, okay, this is my life now. I have a family and everything, but I am an individual and I live my own life now, you know.
Where did you go when you were 15?
I went to Colombia. I shifted to South America. And I studied there. So I was living with a complete new environment. I stayed with a family there, which I didn't know at all before.
But why did you go to Colombia out of all places?
Because I did an exchange with Rotary.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was the available country.
Okay.
And I love South America.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Tell me something about South America that you absolutely love.
See, that fire they have, you know, and I love Spanish. Like, I speak Spanish.
Yeah?
Now. So for me, that kind of fire and that burning and their like compassion and all is what I love. And the country is also very beautiful, you know, like they have a
Nice.
lot of like beauty there.
Yeah, and I also feel it is one of those countries towards the west which has more spiritual depth in it compared to the other countries like America or the United Kingdom. I feel South America has a lot more culture, deep-rootedness and stuff like that.
They have a lot of depth. To be honest, I think all parts of the world have a lot of ancient knowledge, even in Europe. But in Europe, a lot of it has been lost, you know. So I think that's what is still very, especially South America and India, or generally Asia, said. Yeah, the depth of the knowledge is still there.
There's a lot of preserving that's happened.
Yeah.
So tell me about this being independent thing again. Let's get back to that. So you said you came out at 15, you went to Colombia.
Yeah. You asked me about why I think it is so important.
Yeah.
See, for me, it's like I love going back to my family, and they are like my world, you know. But I think for every young person, it is important maybe shifting out of the city or even in their own place, or, you know, just, you know, you have to kind of go, you have to not cut the strings attached, but you have to get your space.
Yeah.
So you find your own life, your own way of yourself, you know. And what I have experienced a lot is like people always say like, wow, so amazing how much you have traveled, but they don't see the costs of it as well.
Yeah.
So through traveling and through leaving my country, I have learned things, and I have had to learn things which I would have never been able to in my country.
What are some of the things that you've learned?
To be honest, I've had situations which were like I was stuck, or, you know, you have to you're completely only depending on yourself. There is no one else.
Yeah.
So you have to figure everything out for yourself. You have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of your stuff. You have to plan by yourself, your finances, everything, no? So there won't be your mommy or daddy who takes care. You're there, you're alone, and you can make people, but you have to face it that you are responsible for yourself.
True, and I feel because you're left in that hopelessness kind of phase where you're like, dude, what do I do? But then you realize you're all by yourself. There's a very big self-realization moment that's about to happen.
I mean, I have to admit, like for me, even if I am completely on the other side of the world, my parents are always there for me. Like even now, you know, my dad has had calls with the Saudi Arabian airline or something. He doesn't even speak English. So it's like they always have my back, but they know that I am completely independent also, you know, which makes it a good combination because now I have a very healthy relationship to them, but they know that I'm an adult and they don't see me as a kid. You know?
Makes sense. And I think a lot of Indian parents need that truly, because you know, Indian parents, we're so tied to the kind of situations that we are in, to the people that we're in, the expectations that my child will stay with me and take care of me until my death, is, I feel, a good thing and also a bad thing. There's something so divine about Indians that I feel once you mature very well as an Indian, you know, as a human being. Because a lot of other countries, you know, death is a topic that they wouldn't want to talk about. But in India, it is celebrated, it is looked upon, there are rituals to death. And most importantly, because you're sharing a house with somebody who's old, you're also getting wiser looking at them. Like you see a reflection of who you will be. But I feel a lot of times, many people who don't have this opportunity usually don't build gratitude, don't mature as an adult the way they have to be. So I think this is the good side of not having freedom, or like the kind of things that you gotta get exposed to. But if you're open to understanding that through life, yes, great. But for an average Indian, I feel he matures quicker, but it's just that his freedom does not have any you know, bounds for it to be experimented.
See, I think there are like light and dark sides to everything, I guess. No, but it's not like even in my country, people think I'm crazy.
Yeah?
It's not that I am the average kind of an Austrian person, if you think that. Like,
true.
especially when it comes to like lifestyle or traveling or whatever. No.
True.
Still people will think I'm crazy. So even we have that more preserved kind of a culture, and we have, but I do think that maybe the relationships between children and parents are very different there. But it's more about their own decision. So if my friends want to go, they can go, but maybe they don't even want to. So I guess that is a big point. Do you want or do you not want?
Correct. Tell me about how you've also managed to spend and earn money post your age of 15, because once you're traveling, of course your parents will support you, but not throughout as well. How did you earn? Or did your parents still support you through the entire process? How did it go?
So my parents are very supportive. Like as long as I'm like in the study phase, they will take my costs. I went like until I was in high school, I stayed with them only. You know, I was in my home in Colombia. The family took care of me because afterwards we took care of one Colombian child. You know, it's like an exchange, no?
Okay.
So what happened when after I finished my high school, I went backpacking. No, like I traveled the world alone.
Okay.
With my backpack. And in that time, they didn't, like, I was just working, you know. So I had my volunteer places where I worked, and then I got food and accommodation, which kind of cut the cost.
Was it like
I was
Isaac?
working. Isaac, I don't know, it's like called Workaway. So it's an app, you just text them and then they will tell you, okay, you can come or you can't come.
Okay.
So, you know, that is how you can manage your finances, because anyways you work every day for them. So they make it, you know, even.
Okay, that's nice. That's interesting. So how many countries have you traveled?
I counted it once, I think like 24 or 25.
Damn, that's a lot of countries.
Yeah.
Which country do you think is by far more different than any other country?
India.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, each country has their own differences. I think now if you are there, you would probably say Austria.
Yeah.
But for me, Austria is so normal, no?
Yeah, true.
So
No, but
I guess
amongst the
it's India.
25 countries that I'm
Yeah, I
talking.
guess it's India. Like comparatively to my world and my country, India is the biggest difference. And
The biggest difference. That's nice. Tell me about some of your other countries and experiences that you've gone through. Like, what apart from India?
apart from India, well, like US, it's not such a huge difference, you know. But for me personally, I lived in Zanzibar for some
Okay.
time, like Tanzania. I stayed there. I was working as a yoga teacher and I did my study online because it was lockdown. So I decided to take off to Tanzania. And there it was also a completely different world. But there is a lot of, like in Zanzibar, there is that connection between a lot of tourism because it's those white beaches kind of a thing, no?
Uh-huh.
And the really conservative culture of the people who stay there, you know, the natives. So that confrontation is very interesting as well.
Uh-huh.
You know, how to balance it out in a way where the people in the bikini are on the beach, the tourists, and then actually the island is Muslim, no?
Yeah.
So it was very interesting also, that
Nice.
connection kind of.
So yeah, one was Tanzania, and apart from Tanzania, what other country was really interesting? What? Okay, by the way, just name as many as countries you can that you visited.
For me, you know what changed my life a lot was the Amazon forest.
Oh wow.
I was staying in Colombia, no? Then I went like Brazil and Peru also.
Yeah.
And once I went in, like I went twice to the Amazon forest, and it's like once we went with like a lot of exchange students, we all went together and we were in that huge boat, you know, and we went the whole day inside the jungle, and then we slept in a
Wow.
resort, which is like only we were there, you know, and it was the most beautiful sky I've ever seen. And we did like a lot of things which were like only us and nature, you know.
Wow.
Nothing else, no electricity, no nothing.
Wow.
And that I think really changed my life as well.
Like, what way did it change your life? Tell me, like, the kind of things that went on in your head and the
I
experience.
was in a really bad state back then.
Like?
Like I had a really tough time mentally there, and I was not doing well. So when I went to the Amazon River and that, like, you know, the Amazon forest generally, that vibe, I think it was just a different feeling of life, you know. Sometimes you have those moments where life hits you differently.
Correct.
And I had that moment, and that I think I switched when I decided, like, yes, I want to live, you know, that kind of a spirit. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Then?
But every country has, you know, when I go to Turkey, there is something which inspires me, like the street food or the mosques, or if I go to Egypt and, you know, go snorkeling in the Red Sea, it's like, wow. Or I go to South Africa and we do the safari, and, you know, elephants come hunting you. And or Costa Rica has the most beautiful landscape and countryside ever. So I think whenever I go anywhere, even if it's like inside Europe, you know, if you travel to Ireland, for example, or you travel to Greece, you can see so many things even by traveling a few kilometers, you know.
So tell me, to go to these countries, do you need a lot of money? What's the best way one can go to these countries at very less cost?
See, people always think like going abroad, then like, I don't know, they have to go Dubai, they have to pay the hotel, like I don't know how much money. Some people travel like that, you know.
Yeah.
Then you can do it maybe once a year. You can go to the place, you can stay there, have a full luxury, and then go back, and that's it. But what I do is more, I don't travel as a tourist more, I do it more as a lifestyle kind of a thing, no? So I know a lot of people like all over the world. So usually I stay with those people to know their culture better, you know? I don't want to be that kind of a just superficially knowing, okay, sightseeing this, but I want to actually know the culture, you know? So either I do that, or I love to stay as couch surfing also. Have you heard of that app?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. So it's just a different feeling you get by staying with the locals. Or there are a lot of ways how you can work voluntarily. So everything will be compensated, you know.
So when was the last time you did this?
The volunteering?
No, I mean this whole couch surfing, volunteering thing, everything. When was the last time you traveled?
I traveled with my sister. She came in June. She picked me up from India. We went to Nepal. Also, we met couch surfers there. Sometimes you stay in hostels. So we did a crazy, like we are crazy together. So we just, we just go. We just live in the moment. Everything will come. You trust the universe,
Yeah.
So we stayed in Nepal. Then we have friends in Rajasthan. So we stayed there. Then we went Kerala, we went. So either we know people or we go through couch surfing or opportunities will come.
Nice.
Once I walked in Costa Rica with my friend and we were looking for a hostel. Then randomly one lady asked us what we are looking for. We said a hostel. She said, come stay in our house. It's like that. If you trust, everything will fall in place.
Yeah, and you realize that there's a beautiful rhythm to the universe itself, right, while you're traveling, because now most people want things planned. They want to know exactly what they're doing. They want to enjoy.
Yeah.
But I feel traveling is actually this. When you go and you try living every moment by itself, like not knowing what you have to do is the best thing about the trip. Right? And if everything became so predictable that you had to do this, then I feel it takes away the unpredictability part of this whole thrilly, adventurous ride that you want to have.
I mean, I guess it depends on what you want. Like, if you're like so stressed out and you want like 5 days of complete relaxation, I don't think it's good to stay with like couch surfing.
Yeah, true.
Because I think traveling actually also like takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
So if you just do a vacation, that is different.
Yeah.
But then if you want that adventure and that like real culture kind of a thing, that is traveling for me. It's not vacation,
Yeah, true. I think there's a very significant difference in that.
Yeah.
Man, you tell me some interesting stories. Like maybe you met somebody crazy, or maybe you met something happened. You lost a bag, you lost a friend. What? Tell me some crazy stories about your travel.
Crazy stories. We have done like crazy things. But once, for example, I went with my sister. We went in bicycle, okay? Like we went in the train. We took our bicycles to like Netherlands, and then we rode through Germany. Like we just rode in bicycle, okay? We had our backpack and all.
Wow.
And then we were like, we didn't plan anything. We didn't know where we'll sleep. So we had that one night where we wanted to find a place, but there was no place. So we were like, let's just ask someone if we can sleep in their garden, So we asked them, and then they thought we have like the full equipment, like a tent and everything. And we had one towel, which we were sleeping on, and one sleeping bag, and that's it.
Wow.
And they thought we were mad, It was crazy. We didn't plan, and it was an amazing trip, but it was crazy.
Yeah, wow. Now I'm interested to listen to more. Tell me more, Alena.
I always do those kind of things, even in Costa Rica. Sometimes I just took off. People were like, are you crazy? I was like, oh, it's okay. Then I went in bus, I just went and I was like there. Then, okay, I had to go back. All those things, it just happens spontaneously. And if you're with people, for example, then the real crazy shit happens,
Yeah, tell me.
Especially with my sister and my cousin,
Yeah.
I think. We're like, let me think of like something. Like once we went in safari in South Africa, there's a huge national park. And then there are like small stations.
Okay.
Like it's like a wild national park. There are like all animals, so you have to sleep in those preserved areas. So we were staying there with few people, and then we did the night tour in the bus.
Okay.
And then they had the stations, So one station was there, and we said, okay, now we reached. So we took off and we like reached the place, and then the bus took off, and we realized, shit, that is not our station.
Oh God.
And you can't go out, no, because that is a wild park.
Yeah.
So we were like, holy shit, now what are we going to do?
What did
Because
you
the
do?
other people were waiting for us, no?
Okay.
If you get lost in that park, you're dead.
So what did you do?
There was some very nice, how to say, like taking care of the wild park. So he took us in jeep, and like 20 minutes further was our camp. It's like things happen, but then always someone will be there to help you.
Nice, man. Your life sounds so adventurous and crazy. I think it's like straight from a movie. There's this one movie in Netflix. No, what is it? It's called Gone into the Wild. No.
Yeah.
Have you
I know
watched
that.
it?
Yeah, I've watched it. My sister wants to do that thing.
Yeah, dude, it's just crazy. Like there's this one American kid who is like one nerd and all of that. Okay, and he's like completely into studies and stuff, and his dad always has high expectations of him that you have to do this, that. One day he'll ask his dad to buy him a car. He'll take the car. He'll write a letter. He'll be like, "Thank you so much. I'm gone." And the parents will never ever find him until he's dead.
Yeah.
Right? And what a movie, dude. Like, what a movie. I'm like, wow. And when you say these things, I'm like, your story is so close to a movie. You should, I really think, Alena, some point of time.
I think I was very young when I just started to do crazy things, And I think it's like an addiction, For me, if I stay at the same place like forever, I don't know, it's not what I feel like my life should feel like,
Yeah. But do you also think that it will change over a period of time, maybe when you get older?
I was thinking that, but I'm not sure. Like, even now I can feel it sometimes that I get tired. I just want to settle.
Yeah.
I think now I have just found the balance in between the habits I need to keep up to be healthy in that kind of a lifestyle. And I don't like moving all the time, know. But I think changing with my own set of habits, which I keep, is a very healthy thing, to have that adventure, but still that kind of a grounding.
Yeah, I think eventually as you grow up, your core values also change as an individual. You start seeing life differently, and settling down also keeps your mind at calm sometimes, and you need that, because human brains love predictability. Like, we love to know what's going to happen next. We love to know that our business might take off and we might have sustainability. But we also like the adventurous part where we feel safe within our presence, but we're experiencing everything new.
But you know what is very interesting? For me, it's like, even though I live in other countries, I will always feel where I grew up and my culture kind of a conditions, So for me, when I travel, I'm okay. Like, things will have adventure. But when I stay somewhere, for me, that unpredictability, for example, in India, there are no, like, we are very punctual and we are very structured, So that unpredictability is like so stressful because the culture is so different, So in some way, I think I am both. I love the adventure, but if I stay somewhere, I also like to have my structure.
Nice.
Kind of, my system in a way.
Yeah, because you're not at home, first of all. You need something that makes your life easier and avoids you from overthinking and breaking your head. And you need some easy going things in your life.
I mean, I was always thinking, like, why am I like that? Especially when I was staying in campus with my friends, because their culture is so different, no? So I was in that kind of a state where I was like, okay, I know I'm from somewhere else, but I want to so fit in, Until a certain point where I was like, see, I know I want to fit in, and I have found people who are my friends, but I have to accept that I'm different, because the way how I grew up and the way, like, there's a reason why I was born in my country, right?
Yeah.
So the culture and the silence we have and the privacy also we have, I have to take myself serious. Because if I keep pushing myself thinking I have to be the same, it won't be healthy for me.
True. And let's say you found your business groove here, and you found out, like, right now you're at an experimental phase in India, right? You're trying to see what works, what doesn't work for you.
Yeah.
But let's say it does work for you, and things work out in a way where you want it. Do you think you have what it takes to stay in India, even if you have, let's say you have a successfully established something for yourself? Have you developed that kind of familiarity with India that you'd stay here forever if given the chance?
See, for me, I have found my way of how I like to live in India.
Okay.
Is like, I don't set myself out to the traffic every day or something. I know my limits. So I know a way how I can live in India and still feel comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
So,
what would be that way?
Like, I want my space, and I want a quiet space, and then I have to kind of work on, I can't set myself out to too much hectic. I know doesn't do me well. So if it happens sometimes, it's fine. But in a normal day life, I'll focus on my work, on my home, on my habits, like focusing on my sports and my people. But I wouldn't set myself out and go to the market every day, or, street traffic, and that's something which stresses me out a lot. So I think I found those things, and I know how to avoid them in a better way, especially once I'm settled. But, like, I really want to stay here, and I want to build up my business and also my work. But I know that at some point I want to bring what I learned here and my knowledge to Austria. And that is not now, but let's say, even if it's in 10 years, I know at some point it's going to happen that I want to bring it to my culture, you know.
Nice. And I think that way the dream has another step, another layer, where I feel a lot of people in your country will have more impact of what you are doing rather than here than there, because there people are not used to the Indian culture of things or the Indian way of doing things. So I think the impact that you can actually make in Austria is far more than the impact that you can make here.
I hope, yeah.
Yeah, true.
It's my big dream, you know, because I can see the options you have here, which we do not have in my country. And the strictness of my country, I hope it's going to change, you know. I feel in my country there is a movement that it's more opening towards the alternative side, because people are more interested in that now. So I think actually now is a good time for me to study everything here, because the time will come, you know.
True. Man, I'm sure, I really hope that your dream does come true and you help a lot more people, especially people from your country, realize what alternative medicine is, and with somebody like you with it, I'm sure it's going to happen. I genuinely feel that for an individual to really by the age of 22 live so many parts of life is truly a blessing, and I'm glad that you're able to share that today on the podcast to I don't know how many people are going to watch this, but to everybody watching, they must also understand that there is more beyond their normal life. And I think, Alena, you are that perfect example for me. It's truly been a pleasure, man, to get you on this podcast, man. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
So on that note, Alena, thank you so much for coming on this podcast. It has been one amazing conversation. In fact, one of the longest conversations I've had in all of my podcasting, and I feel we should do more of this. Maybe we can do a part 2 episode separately, or maybe we can make this one like that. But honestly, I feel there's so much commonality, yet we come from 2 different countries. I strongly feel that, and I'm glad I was able to have this conversation.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Woohoo! Yay!